Our second example is the army of Israel facing the army of the Philistines in a battle at the Valley of Elah. Now, it's about these two little mountains. They're not high. They're only about, I've been there at the Valley of Elah. These two hills are only about 30 meters up and around 25 meters high, two hills. And they're only about 400 meters apart, maybe 500 meters apart at the very most. I'm going to say 400. And so David was sent by his father Jesse to take food to his brothers who were in the war, the spectator war. Because for 40 days and 40 nights, the giant came out on the hill of the Philistines and beat his chest and challenged the army of God to fight with him. Send me a man who will fight with me. If I beat him, you'll be our servants. And if he beats me, then you'll be our servants. And if he beats me, we'll be your servants. And if I beat him, you'll be our servants. And no one was going anywhere to fight this man. He was challenging King Saul because he was head and shoulders taller than anybody else in the army of Israel. But King Saul was having nothing to do with that. So David arrives and he sees this going on. Goliath coming out and challenging the army of God. And so David volunteers to go fight the giant. He goes to see King Saul, 1 Samuel 17:32. Then David said to King Saul, let no man's heart fail because of this giant Goliath. Your servant David will go and fight with this Philistine. But David said to King Saul, your servant used to keep his father's sheep. And when a lion or a bear came and took the lamb out of its flock, I went out after it and struck it and delivered the lamb from the lion's mouth. And when it rose against me, I caught the lion by the beard and struck and killed it. Now look here in verse 32. Go back there. It says, then David said, now go to verse 34. Then David said, can you see how David is confessing what God has done for him? It's 36. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be like one of them, seeing he has defied the army of the living God. Uncircumcision means circumcision means they had a covenant with God. That was the sign. Now today, all of us who believe in Jesus have circumcised hearts. Circumcision simply means cutting off, depending on the flesh, and cutting off the sins of the flesh. Our faith is in Jesus now. He is our strength and our ability. So our circumcised of heart, in those days they couldn't be born again, so they were circumcised in the flesh. So here's a man who doesn't have a covenant with God, and he's challenging the army of God who does have a covenant with God. And so David realizes God's on his side and not on Goliath's side. 37, David said, he's not finished, done yet. Moreover, David said, the Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. So look at that. David is saying, God will deliver me from the hand of the Philistine. 40. Then David took his staff in his hand, and he chose for himself 5 smooth stones from the brook of Elah, and put them in his shepherd's bag, and a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. Now we're skipping down to verse 43, but if you'll read on, you'll see the Bible tells us David hastened and ran towards the giant. Ran. Now you see David had to come down the hill his army was on, through the brook, and he had to go up the other hill, and at the top of the hill was Goliath, and behind him the army of the Philistines. And David's running up the hill, and you can only imagine a 17-year-old teenager, probably weighing about 55, 65 kilograms. And Goliath the champion warrior of the Philistine army, 11 feet tall, about 400 kilograms. How big he must have looked at standing on top of the hill, and here's little David running up the hill towards him. And his friends, the Israelite army, are on the other hill, way back there, watching him alone. In front of him is the giant and the whole army of the Philistines. So the Philistines said to David, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. He had a separate stick in his hand. And the Philistines said to David, "Come to me, and I'll give your flesh the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." Now, you know, in the comics that I used to read as a kid, I don't know if you're old enough to know what I'm talking about, but you'll have above the guy's face, you'd have a little circle getting bigger, bigger to have a cloud, and then in the cloud you have the picture of what the guy's thinking. How do you remember that? 3 of you, okay. So I can just see what Goliath's thinking. He's thinking, you know, like you see a roast chicken, took it out the oven, you take the leg off and you eat it. Roast chicken. I see he's seeing David, little David. He's going to pull his arm off and give it the birds of the air, and pull this arm off and give it the birds of the air. There's only a little guy. He's about 5'10", 17. He's a shepherd. He's never been trained to use weapons, right? So then he says, "I'm going to feed you to the birds of the air, David." Now, you know, family, it doesn't matter what you believe in God for. It doesn't matter what the dream is that God has put in your heart. If you believe in God to fulfill the dream that He's put in your heart, you can count on one thing. The devil's going to send his agents to discourage you. Like Goliath said to David, "I'm going to feed you the birds of the air." Right when he's about to fight Goliath, Goliath says, "I'm going to feed you the birds of the air." That's not that encouraging, is it? And I'm sure that you got friends and family even who've said to you, "You can't do this," and have been done before. You know, you don't have the education. You're too old. You're too young. And you've never achieved anything like that in your life before, so don't think about it. Don't even think about it. You'll make a fool of yourself. Just when you're about to step out the boat and walk on the water, they're going to give you some real encouraging words. Just like David received from Goliath. But the answer is, we don't sit still and say nothing. We have to speak back in love and be positive. We have to discount those words, pull them down, like David did here in 45. Then David said to the Philistine, "You come to me with a sword and a spear and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God, the army of Israel, whom you have defied." Now, I can just imagine the army of Israel on the other hill saying, "Here, go for it, David, go for it, we've got your back. We're right with you, David." They're way back in the change rooms. And there's David on the other hill with Goliath. "Go for it, David, we got your back, we're right with you." No, that's not what they said. That's not what they said. The army of Israel watching little David run up that hill thinking, he's history. My little brother, he's history. We'll never see him again. I hope we've got enough pieces to bury. I hope we can find something left of him to bury. Farewell, goodbye, it's nice to know you. I think that's where that song came from. 46. This day the Lord, this is what David said to the giant, this day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. I'm trusting in God. He will deliver you into my hand. And I will strike you and take your head from you, and this day I'll give the carcasses of the entire camp of the Philistines to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, and all the earth will know that there's a God in Israel. So David said, I'm not only going to whip you, Goliath. He said, when I'm done with you, I'm going to destroy the entire Philistine army. Now you can imagine the Philistine army looking at this little kid running up the hill to the giant, and they're thinking, no one is brave enough to come and fight Goliath. And here is this deranged, mentally retarded, young 17-year-old kid has lost his mind, and they couldn't hold him back, and so they turned him loose. He's come here to be slaughtered. But no, he wasn't at any of that, not at all. He knew what he was believing in. For the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. Now we know the story well. David used his sling, God anointed it, stone hit Goliath on the forehead, he fell down. David ran up to Goliath, stood on his chest, took his own sword out of Goliath, took Goliath's sword out of Goliath's sheath, and cut Goliath's head off with Goliath's sword. Because David didn't have a sword of his own. Now the fact is that God defeated Goliath. God defeated Goliath because of what David said. Because of David's words. God defeated Goliath. Therefore, these words of David, the battle is the Lord's, and this day the Lord will deliver you into my hand. Those words, family of God, slew that giant. Those words killed Goliath, not his sling. If he hadn't have said that, God wouldn't have anointed that stone and taken it to the forehead of Goliath. Most Christians, when a problem arises suddenly, will run around like a chicken that's had its head cut off. Now, we grew up, my grandparents had a little farm in Mount Ishcombe, they were staying, my grandfather was in the sugar mills then. He was brought out to be an engineer on the sugar mill, Mount Ishcombe sugar mill, on the north side of Durban. And they had a little chicken run, unless they had 100 chickens or so. And every now and again they'd cut a chicken's head off to cook it. Hello? And it took off. That's where the word fast food came from. Because once its head took off and it ran, boy, I'm telling you better catch that chicken. It's amazing how fast it can run without a head on. And when something goes wrong with some Christians, that's exactly how they behave. I said, there they go. Heads cut off like a chicken. There they go. Watch them. Running around, freaking out, trying to find natural reasons and sources to help them solve their problem. Trying every natural remedy, problem-solving system in the known to man. The last thing to think of is going to God. Here's the answer. Stop, assess, speak. Say that. Stop, assess, speak to my giants. Those words of faith spoken by David created supernatural momentum in David's life. David was a little shepherd boy. No one even thought about him joining the army. His father sent him with food to his brothers. No one even knew he was. But when he took out Goliath, everybody knew who he was, and he became the general of the army of the Israelites from then on. Promoted from obscurity to general of the army of Israel. So the giant that came to face David brought promotion to him. The problem he encountered promoted him. Promoted him. Say this: the problems I face in life are an opportunity for God to set me free, deliver me, solve the problem, and bring me promotion. You see, those words of David spoken to Goliath gave David supernatural momentum for the rest of his life. In fact, that was the beginning of the reason that David was propelled to the throne of Israel.
Thank you for watching Dr. Theo's YouTube channel. We will continue to offer encouraging and life-changing highlights from Dr. Theo's past, present, and future series and messages. Please take the time to like and share the videos. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.